What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is one massive reason for why I personally believe Battlefield 6 is completely mopping up Black Ops 7. Now, of course, I'm not talking about sales, numbers, because apparently Black Ops 7 is doing pretty well when it comes to console. But when it comes to the overall casuals experience and why so many casuals are ditching Call of Duty and leaving for the overall Battlefield 6 experience, I think there is one massive reason for such a thing, because let's be real here, Battlefield at the end of the day is massively different compared to COD. You know, you're not really getting the same fix. But I think, when it comes down to the competitive nature of what Call of Duty is evolving into, it's starting to get a bit repulsive. But ladies and gentlemen, of course, before we go and dive on deep, if you guys are interested in more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. Post twice here, once at 8 a.m. Eastern Time and a second time at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And also, if you guys are interested in my live streams, I do stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you guys are interested, I'll link that channel in the description of this video. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's extremely strange because Black Ops 7 is advertised to have reduced skill-based matchmaking. It's supposed to be probably one of the most casual Call of Duty games ever presented to us. But there are so many individuals out there saying that it's a complete rug pull. The skill-based matchmaking hasn't been adjusted. It's still extraordinarily sweaty. Personally, I can't really give my 2 cents about that. But from what I see when it comes down to the gameplay, I know exactly why a lot of the casual players just aren't even bothering with Black Ops 7. And again, it's boiling down to more of the competitive bunch. And that is because of the movement, I promise you. The movement is what makes Call of Duty so sweaty nowadays. And it's sad because I constantly see people say all the time that they do not want to deal with the movement anymore. But every single Call of Duty game that has been ever introduced that tried to adjust the movement got absolutely dunked on for the complete wrong reasons. But before I go ahead and dive on into those games, I want to touch upon why Battlefield 6 is thriving so heavily. They toned everything back, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, just to start off with, this is the slowest base movement speed we have seen in a Battlefield game in ages. Of course, there are some different movement tech that's within the overall product, but when it comes to base movement speeds, unless you pull out a knife, you're running slower than like games like Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, Battlefield 5. I'm not sure about 1, but the base movement speed of this game is much more toned back. And the devs even went as far as, toning back some other things, like, how your reticle is when you're jumping around, jump shotting in general, slide jumping. They wanted to make sure the casual experience was emphasized over the sweatier experience. And don't get me wrong, it pissed off a lot of sweaty players. And for a player like myself, I'm not going to lie, I am a pretty dang sweaty guy. And I don't mind having some cracked out movement. But at the same time, I can see the reality of what these developers were trying to achieve. They were trying to get the massive casual audience, people who, just don't want to deal with all the movement and all of the, the excessive stuff that a lot of these games are trying to pick up nowadays, and just give us an experience that's classic, like the OG Battlefield days and the OG COD days. It's almost like Vince knew that people have been begging for this for ages. But again, no development team really wants to take the steps to achieve this, because I think that, I don't know why, but for some reason in the gaming scene, a lot of these teams believe that, the MLG scene and the competitive league and, movement gods, that's the majority, when in reality, it's not. I'm just going to be honest. Again, as I stated, I'm a sweaty player. I enjoy movement. I enjoy stuff like Splitgate with crazy portals, X-Defiant that had, wild movement, Titanfall 2, and original Titanfall. Like, come on now, Titanfall was insane when it came down to movement, but I absolutely love it. But I 110% see where Vince and the team were coming from when they made these specific changes. And I mean, do the numbers lie? Tons of casual players have completely ditched Call of Duty to come over to Battlefield. And Battlefield 6 is still thriving heavily to this very day. But then you go ahead and check out any example of BO7, and you will see precisely why casuals are turned instantly away from this game. Like, for example, this is a post by Heisenberg saying, "I'm too old for this." And a post is someone hitting like, 3 wall jumps or something like that, which again, for me personally, isn't bad. I don't think this is a bad mechanic. I enjoyed the jetpack CODs. I don't mind the wall jumping mechanic. I think that, it's pretty fun to mess around with. But I can't deny the fact that this is very repulsive to casual players. People just don't like this type of movement, and people have been begging for classic COD for ages, yet, they keep getting neglected, and this is exactly what is presented to them. And as I stated, it is a huge turnoff for a lot of people. It might not be a huge turnoff for you, but as I say in all of my videos, sometimes you got to think about other people out there. You know, like I said, it's not a huge turnoff for me either, but I can 110% acknowledge how obnoxious this is for a lot of casual players out there. And this is another post I actually saw. I think the original poster was consent, but I saw it because Tyler, or I Am Wildcat, went ahead and, reposted it saying, "Welcome to what mouse and keyboard players deal with. The COD player models change direction faster than the human body can physically react." Basically, this person was saying, they want aim assist to be amped back up again, and, Wildcat is saying, well, guess what? This is what we've been dealing with for ages as mouse and keyboard players. It's impossible to track. But this is what literally modern COD is. Between omni movement and the insane movement that's in the game in general with wall jumping, it just makes it so hard to track individual players. It's almost a nightmare to go ahead and track players. It's one of the main reasons why I just stopped playing BO6, because on mouse, it's just not fun anymore. It genuinely was not fun. Now, I'm going to say with the reduced aim assist, BO7 was a bit better in beta, but that's not going to be an excuse for casual players who are looking for a more casual movement system in a Call of Duty experience. It just is what it is. And if this is what's presented, guess what? A lot of players are going to leave and find the alternative, which we do have an alternative this time around, Battlefield 6. Whereas before, we didn't have any alternatives, right? There was not really much out there on the marketplace to give people that, casual FPS fix of hopping in and getting a match real quick. And, they were kind of forced into playing COD. But now that there's other games, people are starting to branch out a bit and play other things. And that's good, because as I stated, Battlefield is not COD. And for the first time ever, I'm actually seeing a lot of players open to learning Battlefield and understanding the ways of Battlefield just because they're looking for something that's a bit more toned back. But this right here is going to lead into my final point about the games that got completely neglected when they tried to take things back to the basics. And it's really sad, because genuinely, I don't think we're ever going to see a classic style of Call of Duty game ever again. And that might not be a bad thing. A lot of people always say, oh, it's time to grow up, stop being an unk. But seriously, there's a charm about classic Call of Duty. The maps were designed around, not having a limited sprint. The maps were designed around using perks like Marathon and Lightweight to, also give you that type of advantage. The whole game was designed around not having cracked out movement, right? And it's so strange, because when you see these old school maps remastered in modern CODs, like Modern Warfare 3, for example, or even BO7, they play drastically different. Are they bad? No. They're still the classic maps. But the flow and the pacing and everything about them it's not the same. Like, for example, Nuketown. Nuketown wasn't that big of a deal when, we're going back to a game like Black Ops 1 or Black Ops 2, where the movement was a little bit more slow. Still not my favorite, I'm going to be honest with you guys, because I just don't like condensed maps like that. I like medium to large maps. But still, since the pacing in BO1 was majorly different, it wasn't the end of the world compared to a game like BO6, BO7, Black Ops 3, all these games where they started amping the movement up a tremendous amount. And now this small map that had a tiny bit of flow has no flow, because people are getting to the middle of the map in less than a second, and it just turns into overall chaos. But the sad thing is, the devs did try to tap into that mindset. They did try to bring back OG Call of Duty. Do you remember after the jetpack era, they put together World War II, and Sledgehammer genuinely wanted to make a Call of Duty game that felt like classic COD. They said, oh, you want boots on the ground back? Then here, we'll give you a classic feeling Call of Duty experience. And instead of embracing that, the whole community complained how slow it was and how we didn't have a limited sprint. And yeah, it had other faults. But it got so bad to the point where literally Sledgehammer overhauled the whole project and added in a limited sprint just to please the overall online audience. Now, I don't know if this was the correct move or not, but I swear every single time Call of Duty brings forward a game that is, like more traditional Call of Duty, the online universe starts complaining like it's nobody else's business. It's so weird, because everybody keeps praying and begging for a classic COD game, but every single time they try to attempt to do anything like a classic COD game, everybody is just whining nonstop about how slow it is becoming. Same thing with Modern Warfare 2 2022. This is the biggest culprit right here, and it's so sad, because Modern Warfare 2 2022, Infinity Ward did a pretty decent job with actually trying to find a classic experience without making it too slow. You could still slide, you could dolphin dive, but the base movement was just there to sprint. That's it. You weren't slide canceling. Your dolphin dive wasn't chainable. You weren't spamming dolphin dive and getting back up, spam it, getting back up. It was a very basic movement in Modern Warfare 2 2022. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Modern Warfare 2 2022 was a perfect title, because it was not. It had plenty of problems. Like, for example, the perk system was horrifying, probably one of the dumbest decisions I've ever seen in Call of Duty history. Another example, the attachments in Modern Warfare 2 2022 weigh down your gun tremendously. You just put on a simple red dot, you couldn't even ADS. You know what I'm saying? It took 2 centuries to aim your gun, so that led to people just creeping around and ADS walking everywhere instead of running and gunning. It's a lot of problems with Modern Warfare 2 2022, but instead of pinpointing those issues, everybody was complaining. I don't even want to say this because it's going to piss me off. It really annoys me so much. I can't even tell you guys. But as I stated, everybody complained so much that they want a classic Call of Duty game, but instead of embracing something like that, they all complain that there's no slide canceling in Modern Warfare 2 2022. It's not fast enough. I can't run fast enough. You know what I'm saying? I can't slide cancel. I can't use movement tech. It's too boring. This is the problem with COD, and this is why I genuinely think that we will never see a classic game, because every single time a classic game is semi-presented, of course, yes, problems are there, but nobody ever pinpoints the real problems. They all pinpoint the toned-back movement, when in reality, that was a thing since the beginning of time. I don't know where anybody's even coming from at this point. I saw another post actually over on Twitter. This was by Flexi or Sam, and they said, all the replies tell me is everyone wants Modern Warfare 2 to be the new base for Call of Duty. Yeah, this franchise is doomed. And again, all the responses to this post are just, mocking anybody who would want that. But my question is, why is that a bad thing? Yeah, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of bad things wrong with Modern Warfare 2 2022. It's not a great Call of Duty game whatsoever. But what's wrong with people saying that the base of Modern Warfare 2, when it comes down to movement, is bad? You had everything. You could slide, you could dolphin dive, you could do all of that stuff, but it wasn't fast. It wasn't cracked out, and it allowed casual players to actually hop into the experience and play without being overwhelmed by people doing a triple B hop into a slide cancel into a YY360. I know, again, like I said, with the new generation of Call of Duty players, that might be horrifying to know that you can't slide cancel, but that is classic COD. That literally is, and I see nothing wrong with that. But again, this post and a lot of other posts online prove to me that we will probably never see a classic COD return ever again, because the sad reality is that it's just never well received anymore. Ever since I swear, and I will die on this hill, ever since the jetpack CODs came into existence, the Call of Duty community completely shifted. Having 3 jetpack CODs in a row was a disaster for the Call of Duty franchise, because right when we hit that 3rd jetpack COD, we were beyond the point of return of actually having a true traditional Call of Duty experience. Everybody's mind shifted, and everybody had the mentality that if it's not as fast as a jetpack Call of Duty game, then it's not good. And you want to know what the funniest thing is? Although Modern Warfare 2 2022 gets all the crap in the world, it is probably the most consistent game on Steam. I mean, look at these charts. No other not older Call of Duty game, because these aren't technically old compared to the classics, but Modern Warfare 2019 up to current date, no other game is holding numbers like Modern Warfare 2 2022. And I'm going to be real with you guys. I think it's only one reason for such a thing. It is the casual Call of Duty experience. Casuals want something that's not cracked out, right? They want to be able to hop in and just simply play, point their gun, and shoot. And as I stated, that might not be what I might want or you guys might want, but that is indeed what a lot of casuals still enjoy. And these numbers prove to me that there's an audience out there who is obsessed with that slower style of movement. Not, slowed down, like I said, ADS walking everywhere. I hated that about Modern Warfare 2 2022, but when it comes to, players not wanting to deal with people slide canceling everywhere, triple B hopping everywhere, doing all this insane movement tech, it seems like they're all gravitating to the COD that allowed none of that to happen. You guys see what I'm saying here? So the whole point of this video is that, yes, I believe Battlefield 6 mopped BO7 in one category specifically, and that is maintaining their casual audience. Battlefield 6 has gone above and beyond to make sure casuals are happy with the experience, even going, out of their way to reduce some of the movement tech just to make sure casuals are happy. And as I stated, it's still fun for sweaty players like myself. I still love the movement in Battlefield 6. It's nice in between. Whereas in Call of Duty, they do everything in their power to do the opposite. I think it's the competitive scene. I think it's, their, actual competitive league that's going on there that brings in a lot of their viewership, because let's be real, not many people watch casual Call of Duty on streams. Not many people watch casual Call of Duty on YouTube anymore. A lot of it is the CDL. It just is what it is. And I think that's why, the devs personally believe they need to push with more cranked up movement and more, movement tech. When in reality, I feel like they should be going the opposite way. They should be trying to reduce some things and make it a bit more consumer friendly for the casuals, because that will really help with their player counts. And I think it will really pull players into the overall experience as well. And although there's no skill-based match, or not no skill, but reduced skill-based matchmaking, that's not going to feel relevant until they do such a thing, like reducing the movement a little bit. As long as there's still insane tech within the game, doesn't matter if you have reduced matchmaking, a lot of people are going to abuse that, and it's still going to feel just as sweaty as any other Call of Duty experience. But ladies and gentlemen, as always, if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a dislike. Don't forget subscribing to the bell. I post twice here, once at 8 a.m. Eastern Time and a second time at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And also, if you guys are interested in my live streams, I do stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you guys are interested, got a link to that channel down in the description of this video. But as always, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you all next one. Peace out.